series offered by the Department of English, Kannur College, Pine. Today we are going to discuss the fourth poem from the textbook, Nature Matters, Readings on Life and Nature. The title of the poem is Trophic Cascade. It's written by famous African American poet Camille Dungy. Before getting into the details of the poem, let's read about the author from the textbook. Professor and poet Camille Dungy is the author of Smith Blue, Suck on the Marrow, and What to Eat, What to Drink, What to Leave for Poison. She is the editor of Black Nature, 4 Centuries of African American Nature Poetry, and co-editor of From the Fish House Poetry Anthology. Her honors include an American Book Award, 2 Northern California Book Awards, a California Book Award Silver Medal, and a fellowship from the NEA. Now, the central theme of the poem is the changes that happened to a national park in USA after the reintroduction of grey wolves into the park. This is an ecological phenomenon. As the title suggests, it's called Trophic Cascade. Trophic Cascade is an ecological phenomenon where the inclusion or the removal of a top predator brings changes in the ecosystem. Here, the top predator in the Yellowstone National Park was the grey wolf. You know what a predator is? Predator is an animal which hunts other animals for food. Animals like tiger, lion, wolf, etc. belong to the category of predators. Normally, predators are carnivorous animals. That means animals which eat flesh as take flesh as their food. So here in Yellowstone National Park, when grey wolves were reintroduced means earlier 70 to 80 years ago there were plenty of predators like grey wolves in Yellowstone National Park, and the increased population of these predators became a threat for the existence of all other animals and creatures in Yellowstone National Park. So the authorities had to remove these predators. So after a few years, authorities noticed that the removal of top predators increased the population of elks or deers. The increased population of these herbivorous animals became a threat for the flora and fauna of Yellowstone National Park. It means these plant-eating animals started grazing, started eating, destroying all plants, grasses, etc. So it became very difficult for other animals in the food chain to exist, because their food too was in insects, plants, etc. In order to exist, all these animals needed plants, shrubs, fruits, etc. But the increased population of these deers started destroying everything. Overgrazing and meandering caused a huge decline in the greenery. It slowly affected the environment. It negatively affected the environment. When the number of trees, plants, grass, etc. reduced, it caused reduced rainfall, and reduced rainfall caused affected the aquatic forms. and many animals, insects, birds, etc. disappeared from this Yellowstone National Park. So, authorities found it necessary to reintroduce these grey wolves. Now, let's discuss the poem. If you have textbooks with you, please take the page 21 and the textbook. Trophic Cascade, Camille Dungy. After the reintroduction of grey wolves to Yellowstone and as anticipated, their culling of deer trees grew beyond deer stand of the mid-century. See here, the poet discusses the reintroduction of grey wolves, and as anticipated, the authorities expected that the reintroduction of grey wolves would ensure the culling of deer. Culling means removing. So, as they expected, the grey wolves, they started killing these deers. Trees grew beyond deers. It means trees started growing. See, before the introduction of these grey wolves, deers were greater in number. The main source of food was grass, little plants, little trees, etc. When these deers faced no threat from predators, the population, there was an overabundance in the population. So they found it very difficult to survive. So they started eating whatever they found before them. Grass, little plants became insufficient for them. So they started to eat little trees. So it reduced the growth of trees. So here, trees started growing again. The next line. In the upridge, songbirds nested, who scattered seed for underbrush, and in that cover wore an snowshoe hat. See here, when trees started growing, different types of birds started arriving in this park, and they started making nests. And these birds, when they reached here, with them, they brought many remainings of different types of fruits, and they scattered seeds here and there, and it became a reason for the growth of different types of shrubs, plants, etc. And when different types of plants, shrubs, etc. increased, it also increased the number of snowshoe hare. It's a type of rabbit. They started arriving, or it started appearing, and its population increased. Next line. Weasel and watershoe returned, also vole, and so came soon hawk and falcon, bald eagle, kestrel, and with them hawk shadow, falcon shadow. Weasel, it's a small carnivorous animal. Watershoe, it was like a rat-like animal, semi-aquatic animal, and vole, it's a small rodent, that was like a rat. And so came soon hawk and falcon. See, when all these little animals and insects returned to Yellowstone National Park, and other animals, birds too started arriving. Hawk, falcon, and bald eagle. We all know bald eagle is the national bird of US. Then kestrel, it too belongs to falcon genus, and with them hawk shadow, falcon shadow, eagle shade, and kestrel shade haunted newly buried runnels. Runnels means streams, little streams. In Malayalam we call it Aruvigal. So these birds and predators started hunting newly arrived little creatures. Because food attracted all these birds and other creatures into Yellowstone National Park. Let's read these lines again. Weasel and water shrew returned, also vowed, and so came soon hawk and falcon, bald eagle, kestrel, and with them hawk shadow, falcon shadow. Eagle shade and kestrel shade haunted newly buried runnels were no longer rummaged, cautious as they were now of being surprised by wolves. So, in these lines, as the arrival of these birds, different types of birds which belong to the category of predators, they started haunting newly buried runnels. See, runnels means, as I told you, streams, and newly buried means different types of shrubs which produced berries, etc., started growing along the side of these runnels were no longer rummaged. See, rummage means search unsystematically, graze unsystematically. See, increased population of deers created a kind of problem, or they struggled very hard to survive. So they had to rummage, graze here and there. So the reintroduction of grey wolves, the appearance of a top predator created a change in the behavioral pattern of these animals. Means these deers started avoiding particular areas, fearing the presence of these predators. So deer no longer rummaged, cautious as they were. See, that's it means they became very cautious. So they stopped, they no longer rummaged or grazed along the side of all these spots, places where they feared, where they thought that they'll have to encounter the predator. The next line, berries brought bear, while undergrowth and willows growing now right down to the river brought beavers who dam. See, berries brought bear. See, bears, though they eat flesh and other little animals, they love to eat different types of berries too. So when different types of shrubs started growing, they attracted these bears because they produced, such shrubs produce different types of berries. So these bears too started arriving, and while undergrowth and willows. Undergrowth means little shrubs, little plants, and willows. Willows is a type of tree. Normally they grow near water forms. And willows growing now right down to the river brought beavers. Beavers are a type of animals, rodents. They normally build little dams across rivers. So they use plants, twigs, branches, etc. to construct their little dams, which provide habitat for other little creatures. So these beavers too started arriving, brought beavers who dam. So the construction of little dams by the beavers provided habitat for other creatures too. Next line. Muskrats came to the dams and tadpoles came too. The night song of the fathers of tadpoles. See, here muskrats means semi-aquatic rodent. Muskrats came to the dams. So, as I told you, the dams were made by these beavers, provided habitat for little creatures, and many insects, little creatures started arriving, and also there was an increase in the number of frogs. Tadpoles means offsprings of frogs. The night song of the fathers of tadpoles. Normally, frogs make croaking sound before the arrival of rain. In many cultures, frog is considered as a symbol of fertility. So, the night song of the fathers of tadpoles. Here, the poet refers that the increased number of greenery, increased number of trees, improved the rainfall, and it attracted and it increased the population of many aquatic animals like frogs, etc. Next line. With water striders, the dark grey American dipper bobbed in fresh pools of the river, and fish stayed, and the bear who fished also culled deer fawns, and to their kill scraps came vulture and coyote, long gone in the region until now, and their scattered seed and more trees, brush and berries grew up along the river that had run straight and so flooded but thus dammed. Compelled to meander is less prone to overrun. Now let's discuss these lines. With water striders. Water strider is a type of water insect. The dark grey American dipper, it's a kind of a bird. Normally it eats aquatic creatures and fish. It started dipping, it started moving, flying up and down near these fresh pools which gave them food. The presence of tadpoles, aquatic creatures, insects attracted this American dipper towards this Yellowstone National Park. American dipper bobbed in fresh pools of the river, and fish stayed. Before the reintroduction of grey wolves, as we discussed earlier, the condition of aquatic forms in the Yellowstone National Park was in danger. So, as rain increased, the amount of rain increased, it improved the condition of aquatic forms in Yellowstone National Park, and also as the dams constructed made by the beavers provided habitat for many aquatic animals, there was a positive change in the habitat, or there was a positive change in the population of these fish also. They too started increasing. So there was an increase in the population of fish too, and fish stayed, and the bear who fished. So along with berries and other insects and animals, fish too was a favorite food of these bears. So bears started catching fish too. the bear who fished also culled
deer,
fawns.
deer,
Fawns means young deers. So these bears, they too started attacking or hunting, killing these little deers. So these bears also culled culled the population, our population of deers. And to their kill scraps came vulture. See, after killing these deers, after eating whatever they wanted, these bears and these grey wolves left the remainings of these animals and the dead bodies. The carrions were the main food of these vultures. And coyote. These vultures, coyote, etc., they started arriving to eat the carrion of these animals, deers. Came vulture and coyote, long gone in the region until now. And their scattered seed. See, when these birds started arriving, they too started introducing or they too started taking with them different types of, they scattered different types of seeds, remainings of fruits in the forest, and it also ensured or increased the variety of different types of variety of plants, trees, etc. And more trees, brush, and berries grew up along the river that had run straight and so flooded, but thus dammed. See, this increased amount of trees, brush, and berries. They started growing up along the river banks. See, before the reintroduction of grey wolves, there were not much plants and berries along the sides of river banks, and it became a main reason for soil erosion. So soil erosion too was a main reason for the disappearance of greenery. So it ensured different types of plants, shrubs, trees, etc. Stopped soil erosion, and it also improved the flow of rivers. But when these rivers started flowing smoothly, it also became a reason for one more threat, that means flooding. But the dams, little dams made by these beavers, stopped overflow of rivers. So berries grew up along the river, that had run straight and so flooded, but thus dam, compelled to meander, is less prone to overrun. That means, as I told you now, the presence or the construction of the little dams made by these beavers ensured that these rivers are not overflowing. Next lines. Don't you tell me this is not the same as my story. All this life born from one hungry animal, this whole new landscape, the course of the river changed. I know this. See here, poet says that she knows what is happening. Don't you tell me this is not the same as my stories. The poet changes from purely ecological to eco-feministic aspect. Don't you tell me this is not the same as my story. Here the poet addresses don't you. You could be anyone, the readers and people who read the poems, this poem, etc. Don't you tell me this is not the same as my story. Uh, what has happened here? What happened in Yellowstone National Park? I can relate this with my life. That means something happened in this in the poet's life. Here she is able to connect this with her life. What the positive changes that happened to Yellowstone National Park. Here the poet is connecting this with something that happened in her life. All this life born from one hungry animal. That means all the positive changes that happen to the ecosystem in Yellowstone National Park, one hungry animal, the top predator, grey wolf, is responsible for this positive change. This whole new landscape, the course of the river changed. River started flowing smoothly and everything started, everything changed, and I know this. I reintroduced myself to myself. See, in the poem, see, the first line begins like this: after the reintroduction of grey wolves. Here, in the last line, too, the poet uses the word reintroduced. Reintroduced myself to myself. That means, as I told you, something happened in her life. That means Oda became a mother, and motherhood brought many positive changes in her life, and her former self was not like her present self. That means motherhood gave her courage, strength, many positive changes, etc. And this changed self was reintroduced to her former self, her older self. This time a mother. She became a mother, and motherhood brought many changes in her life. After which nothing was ever the same. After becoming a mother, the poet realizes that her attitude towards her life, everything changed. She found in her new self new energy. So here she says that I reintroduced myself to myself, this time a mother, after which nothing was ever the same. That means everything changed after a child was introduced into her life, and it brought many changes. It changed her perspective towards life, towards her life, etc. That's why she says, I reintroduced myself to myself. Just like the reintroduction of grey wolves brought many positive changes in the ecosystem of Yellowstone National Park, the birth of a child, the coming of a child into her life brought many changes into her life as a woman. Thank you for watching the video lecture, and at the end of this lecture I have provided you the link of a video which gives detailed information regarding the changes that happened to Yellowstone National Park. And also, for your information, I am going to read a few more information about Trophic Cascade effect. It's just for your information only. See, former wildlife ecologist Aldo Leopard found in the early 19th century that predators help in maintaining a balance within an ecosystem. And marine ecologist Robert Payne coined the term Trophic Cascade in 1980 to describe this phenomenon. Now let's let's discuss comprehension questions from the textbook. First question, define trophic cascade. Now let me read the answer. Trophic cascade is an ecological phenomenon triggered by the addition or removal of top predators. It involves reciprocal changes in the relative populations of predator and prey through a food chain, which often results in dramatic changes in ecosystem. Second question, what were introduced at Yellowstone National Park? Why? Grey wolves were introduced at Yellowstone National Park. Grey wolves were introduced to cull the overabundant deer population. Third question, list the changes brought about by the growth of trees. Answer, trees provided place for songbirds to live and grew berries for bears to eat. Bear population killed more deers and contributed to the cycle the wolves started. Fourth question, what were the animals and birds that returned? Animals like bears, beavers, muskrats, rabbits, mice returned to Yellowstone National Park. Also, birds like hawks, eagles, ravens, etc. to return. Fifth question, how did the river change? Answer, increasing vegetation growing next to rivers stabilized the river banks. Thus, regenerating forests stabilized the balance of aquatic forms. Plant life thrived along the river banks and soil erosion decreased significantly. Sixth question, what brought the bear and the beaver? The recovery of trees and other shrubs which produced berries brought the bears back. Increased growth of willows and other shrubs, the preferred food sources of beavers, brought them to Yellowstone National Park. Seventh question, what does the poet refer to in the line, the night song of the fathers of tadpoles? Answer, regenerating forests stabilizes the balance of aquatic forms in the Yellowstone National Park. The night song of the fathers of tadpoles refers to the sounds made by frogs during night. Frogs normally make sounds before the arrival of rain. In many cultures, frogs were considered as symbols of fertility. Eighth question, name the omnivores that came to feed on the dead. Vulture and coyote. Ninth question, what was the event in the poet's life that brought the cascade effect? Answer, motherhood. The birth of a child brought cascade effect in the poet's life. 10th question, how does the poet reintroduce herself? Answer, the poet reintroduced to her former self the transformed self of the poet after becoming a mother. Unlike her older self, the poet found new energy and strength in her transformed self. 11th question, explain nothing was ever the same. Answer, the birth of a child transformed the poet and the environment around her. Motherhood opened new worlds of self-knowledge before the poet. 12th and the last comprehension question. What is the central theme of the poem? The central theme of the poem is how the reintroduction of grey wolves at Yellowstone National Park transformed the ecosystem around it. It also connects this natural phenomena to a human cascade effect. So with this we end the discussion of the poem Trophic Cascade by Camille Dungy. Thank you for watching the video.